Are you ready to kick ass in your business, especially franchising? Well, buckle up, entrepreneurs, and get ready for a high-octane dose of inspiration, hard-won wisdom, and secrets to balancing family, fitness, and fortune in the fast-paced franchise game. Now, if you've ever dreamed of building an empire where living your life on your own terms, then this is the episode you don't want to miss.
Welcome to Fortify Live with your host, Saeks.
Today, we're joined by Guy Coffey, a franchise powerhouse with over 17 years experience in the industry. Now, his journey began as one of the first 100 franchisees of Anytime Fitness, where he successfully scaled 6 territories and learned the ins and outs of franchising. Guy, welcome to the episode today. I want to hear all about what you're doing. So tell me, what are you up to now?
Well, I'm really excited to be here, number one. So thanks for the opportunity. And thanks for the great introduction as well. So I'm in a bit of an in-between phase right now. As you know, we had started our own franchise system, Frenchie's Modern Nail Care, grew that, and subsequently sold it to private equity last year. And our operating roles, Stephanie and I, my wife, our actual operating roles stopped in August. So we are in the process of building up another company in the construction services industry down in Phoenix. We're in Denver. And I am helping out some emerging franchisors and looking at an opportunity to help a lot more emerging franchisors and people who are starting their own systems and maybe stuck at a certain level. And also just helping people out that are interested in learning more about franchising and maybe getting into it from the franchisee standpoint. Because as you know, I have the franchisee perspective as well as the franchisor perspective.
Yeah, I think that's really important for our listeners today. When we talk about entrepreneurship, you know, I do a lot of interviews with experts in franchising. Sometimes they're franchisees, sometimes they're multi-unit owners, multi-brand owners, sometimes they're private equity groups, and sometimes they're just experts in the field. And I would put you in the category of all of those because you're already a business entrepreneur and a business expert. And so just to recap for our listeners, we're talking to Guy Coffey. You can check him out at guycoffey.com, but I'm going to spell it for you because it's spelled differently. It's GUYCOFFEY and .com. So Guy Coffey, but it looks like Guy just for the purposes of this. And if you're listening now, this episode also, the audio from this live broadcast also becomes the Business Growth Show podcast. So now you know who we are and what we're talking about today. But we're talking about entrepreneurship, like the lessons learned. And one of the things that I like about what you're doing is that you're really committed. When you built up Frenchie's, and I worked with your wife, Stephanie, when you had Frenchie's. So I know she's a rock star in her own right? I want to ask you a couple questions about what you're currently doing that's public. Like, what can you share about your new venture, or can you not share anything about it yet?
Well, thanks for asking. Actually, you know, we can. And the one company is called Dwell Well Tiny Homes, and it is a builder of tiny homes on people's properties in the Phoenix metropolitan area. So anywhere from 400 square feet to 1,000 square feet. Auxiliary dwelling units are what they're called. And it's exciting. We haven't really been in construction. We've been in fitness and we've been in beauty. So construction is a new area for us. And it's heavily dependent upon client experience, sales, and working with general contractors. So we're really excited about that because it's a trend going across the nation right now with the housing crisis. You know, a lot of younger people, a lot of even older people can't afford the housing right now. And what this does is it does infill development, which cities are really liking because the infrastructure is already there for water, sewer, things like that. And it's interesting, when we first got into this, it was actually through a franchise system. You know, we love franchising. And a really bad thing happened, and it was related to franchising. And I share that because the first thing we did when this franchise, so we got into it looking at it, we bought up franchise territories from a company that used to do this. And there was some actually criminal, financial criminal theft. But the first thing that we did, Stephanie and I, when that happened, is look for another franchise system that we could plug into. That's how fixated we are on franchising. Not fixated, That doesn't sound good. So
no, I think
I wouldn't say fixated.
I think I got a ninth grade education. So fixated to me means focused on. So I'm good.
Okay. All right. If you look at it that way, yes. But we're just sold on the franchise model, and because we've seen what it has done for our lives and the lives of a lot of people that started with us in the Anytime system, franchise system. And I think it just checks a ton of boxes for people to become successful entrepreneurs. So, that negative experience, we've already turned around, and just said, okay, like we know there's demand for this product. We've built up a technology stack before. We know how to market. We know how to sell. We know how to build systems. And we're just doing it on our own. And who knows, maybe down the line, we'll turn it into a franchise system once we have proof of concept. But that's not our initial effort right now, is just to see how fast we can get this going, serve as many people as we can, get really, really good at it. Of course, we're going to document everything on the way in case we do want to have turn it into a franchise system later. But truth be told, if you're building any business, even if it's not in a franchise system, you should kind of run it like you are going to franchise it someday, because it makes it easier on your exit. It makes it easier to sell. It makes it easier to hand off to other people, all those kind of things. So we're super excited about Dwell Well Tiny Homes. We're going to be spending a lot of time in the Phoenix market. And, it's Stephanie and I and a business partner, Stacy Stout, who is a friend of ours, who you've met her as well. Yep. And she was a key member of our Frenchies team as well. So it's exciting, new industry, new ownership group kind of. And, just launching any company is just a really, really exciting time. When I'm talking to emerging franchisors right now, I always say, like, document everything, take pictures, take videos. What you think you're going to remember next year, you're probably not. So just write it down, especially with video and images, like capture all that stuff, because even in our 10-year term, of building up Frenchies, we had some great photos, like from the very beginning. Our first conference, we had 8 people. Yep. Compared to what you were at keynote speaking at, and it just makes the journey all that much more fun, because, some of the people that you meet along the way are going to be lifelong friends and business partners and things like that. And some of them aren't going to be in your life that long, for better or worse. And it's important to remember them too. So I'm always telling people just capture everything you can and have fun, because in that initial growth phase, there's so much going on. You're brand new into the sales process and probably don't know how much time it's going to take, even if you plan on outsourcing a lot of it, because you're excited about bringing pioneers into your system. And still to this day, even though we're not operationally active and things like that, we keep track of everything with Frenchies. We're watching all the sales come in, excited about bringing it to new towns. And it's just exciting. And even if it's not your own system, we were super excited when Anytime was growing too, right. To go from 100 to 5,000 in 35 countries and seeing the trajectory that's taken on for the founders and all the people that were involved in the early days it's pretty exciting. I mean, I look at my Facebook or Instagram or things like that, and a lot of my friends, that we have a lot in common, are all from the Anytime Fitness and the Frenchies systems. So it's about the people you take along on the way.
Well, thinking back to your business now. Okay, so now just for the purposes of anybody watching or listening to this, look, these questions are not prepared. So I'm just throwing questions out at Guy and he's just answering them. So this new business you have now, so now it's just a business. You're people are coming directly to you. Are they coming to the website, or they're outside salespeople, or how are people finding out about if they want to add a tiny home? I'm just going to use that term, to their property. Yeah. Do they go to you, and what's an initial investment range? Like if someone wants to do that, what's an out-of-pocket rough expense? Oh,
yeah, great question. So the tiny homes range from 400 to 1,000 square feet, depends on zoning and the building envelope. But in general, a good rule of thumb is about 500 square feet. These are custom stick built with foundations and everything like that. It's not a modular thing. Okay, it's about 200,000.
If it was one of those, you go buy it and they just bring it on a truck and set it down, or you're just building it. Okay.
No, it's usually matches the style of the house, and gotcha. It's very customized, and it's customized to the use as well. Like a 500 square foot tiny home that'll have like 1 bedroom and a living area and bath and kitchen, of course, is about $200,000, depending on the upgrades that you put into it. And, one of the business aspects that we like about it's really easy to finance generally because people usually have
it's an asset,
the equity.
Right.
Yeah. And it increases the property value right away. So it makes sense. And one of the key things for us is 60% of them, the use is to bring aging parents on property. Gotcha. So we have that situation in our own family where someone in our family has 24-hour care and we know she's taken care of. But if she was in a tiny home in our backyard, we would be able to look out the window and see like, oh, Mabel, the nurse is here today. Right. Like I know that. So now we rely on cameras and people dropping by and things like that. But it's 60% of them are for people that are bringing one or both of their aging parents on property. Then about 20% is for folks that are building it for their college age kids after college to come home, save some money, be near them, the best of both worlds, be near them, but not under the same roof, because sometimes the parents probably don't want to know what the kids are up to, and vice versa. You want closeness, but you want to be separated enough, right? Yeah. What's that saying? Good fences make good neighbors, yes, or something like that. And then 20% is for people doing Airbnb or Vrbo or anything like that. So
I do a lot of speaking in the senior care market. Most of the top franchises in senior care have brought me in as a keynote speaker. In fact, I have a pre-event call with home care helpers tomorrow, actually. So I'll be keynoting their conversation. What's interesting is I've really gotten to learn more about the aging marketplace. Now, in my case, I'm an orphan, so I don't have aging parents or anything like that. But we know that the marketplace is only going to continue to grow for what you're doing. So, I want everybody to realize this, that what he did is he took his entrepreneurial expertise. He saw an opportunity. He got into a franchise brand. That one wasn't going to be successful, but that didn't mean that the concept wasn't going to be successful. And now you're leaning into it in a big way. And I think that, when people ask me, because I've got patents and intellectual property, and then people always say, well, should you patent a process? Well, patents only give you the right to fight in court. I'm not, for the purposes of this show, we're not giving you legal advice. This is strictly for educational and informational purposes only. Now that I got the disclaimer out of the way, this is not a offer to buy or sell a business or a franchise. So got that out of the way. But what I like about what you're doing is it's a really easy message for people to agree with. They know they have aging parents. They know they have college. They know they want to maximize their property. So I think that is amazing. So you guys, I haven't actually looked at the website. Is there a website? Is it, what's the website?
Dwell Well Tiny Homes.
dwellwelltinyhomes.com.
Yep.
Okay. And you have, all right. So, and then you've got good lead forms on there, right?
Oh yeah. Everything's set up.
Video. I haven't looked at it yet, so I should probably pull it up on another monitor while I'm here.
To be honest, we are literally just doing the test on it because we had to rebrand and do everything. We're literally redoing the tests on it tomorrow. So maybe by the time this airs, everything will be set. And then, we have, lead capture and a process in place that will be able to follow up with people and get their questions answered. Even if someone's just curious in the beginning, we have a lot of information on it. We're tapped into a lot of expertise on this. So if we don't have the answer, we can certainly get the answer, and we can do something that's really cool. We can take a look at the property virtually and show you what you're building envelope is. And and if you don't go down the road with Dwell Well, somebody else, but we're providing service, and we're happy to provide some value first, and hopefully build a relationship and go down the path from there.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's bring it back to business now. I want to learn more. You got to keep me updated on it. I'd love to do a hot seat critique for you. I'm not going to charge you anything, obviously, as a past client, but I'd love to see what you're doing. Certainly leveraging the media would be huge. It's not the first to market. It's who's the loudest voice. And so at the end of the day, there's only 3 ways to get business: create it, borrow it, or buy it. You create it through your content, and you are a massive content producer. I know I've been on your show before, and you've got a lot every time I open up LinkedIn, because I've seen your posts. So you're doing social media well. So I know that part's right. So you can create it with content. You borrow it by looking for resources that reach the same target market you do. So obviously in the markets you're in, the local news channels will pick you up and do a story on you. And that story adds social proof and credibility. So it's not when the story runs, it's that you can use it over and over again to say, hey, here's why we are one of the better companies. Because there's a lot of there is competition in that space, but there's a wide range of competition in that space. So none really doing what you're doing. And so it's really important to borrow the influence. What podcasts, what shows can you get on talking about it, just like you're doing here, of course. And then, of course, the third way is you buy it. You can spend money. And, are you going to go to home shows? Are you going to exhibit at trade shows, consumer shows, and do pay-per-click advertising for people who are, you're in a search-based business. If my wife came home today and said, hey, we need a tiny home, first thing I'm going to do, other than now I would call you, is I would go to Google, right? So for those listeners out here, to get traffic for any business, B2B or B2C, you create it, you borrow it, or you buy it, right? Would you agree?
Absolutely. I've actually never heard it summarized that way, and I actually wrote it down.
Yeah, well,
I steal from the best. I steal from the best.
There's thousands. I mean, I've written books on marketing. I've been in marketing my whole life, and I've invented multiple products, and I've got patents, and I've learned over the years, keep it simple, get complicated later. At the end of the day, all marketing and sales is just giving people enough information that they can make good decisions. It's not hype or trickery or manipulation, and yes, you can use AI and ChatGPT, and we all know we can use that now to help us improve our marketing. But everybody has a big BS detector now, right? And because you can tell when it's written with AI, like I'll respond to some stuff with AI. I need to make quick comments on social media. I have my browser open. I go to ChatGPT. I copy the post, write a post as me, and I post it. And people know that because the English is perfect and the words are probably bigger than I would use, that I probably leveraged AI to maybe write that. But it's also the cost basis. I mean, for me, I'm commenting not just to comment and create the conversation going, but to also it helps trigger the algorithms that post has value. So a lot of times I'm posting to my friends' posts, not because I'm posting the most amazing comment, but because I know that if I post there, that post is going to get more views in the future. So that's just a kind of a side note. All right. So marketing is really just giving information. You've got that going on. Now, I know that was interesting. I'm going to go back to something about how you live your life, because one of the things I know about you is you're very disciplined, you're organized, and you really build strong relationships. Where did you first understand that relationships were critical? I mean, it sounds like common sense, but a lot of people, common sense doesn't mean common practice. So where did you develop those leadership and communication and relationship skills?
Well, I'll tell you, it's one of the other reasons that I'm on a crusade to get more people into business for themselves, is because I just think it brings out the best in people. I think it helps communities. And I think it helps people understand the interdependence that we humans have with each other. I always give the example of, there's a spice shop across the way from my office, and I'm not a huge cook or chef or anything like that, but I go to the spice shop once in a while just because I want the spice shop people to be in business, and I want them there for other people too. And so what I think unlocked it for me was like, I'm a fairly empathetic person and likable in general. But what brought out the best in me and showed more of me to people was when I kind of was forced to, when I got into entrepreneurship, where it was, I worked for a big company for a while, Deutsche Telekom, the German phone company. And if I went to an event and disappeared along the wall, I was fine with that. Really, I wasn't trying not to integrate, but it's like I'm a bit of an introvert that way. And it wasn't until we opened up our first Anytime Fitness, and it was in a town 6 hours away from our home. And we did that purposely and for a particular reason, so that we could get good at remote management, because we wanted to build our locations in smaller communities. And I realized that when I went to a chamber of commerce thing, or when I was interacting with a waiter or waitress at the restaurant and things like that, it's all a reflection back on Anytime Fitness in Montrose, Colorado. And it got me out of my shell, actually, to just start introducing myself and just asking like, hey, do you work out? Like, did you hear about the Anytime Fitness coming here and things like that? And more, it was like I had more on the line and I had a reason to be more social. And that's really played out over time. That was 17 years ago. And you think I would have learned it earlier than that. It wasn't like I didn't have any relationships before that. But, since then, since I've become more like, hey, we've got a lot on the line and I need to talk to people and invite them in and be somewhat of a welcoming character and someone that they wanted to do business with, it just kind of opened that up for me. And I just think it would do the same for anybody else. And I've been in franchising long enough in different systems where I've seen some people that do extremely well in it. And then some people that just did not do very well in it. And it had nothing to do with the model or anything like that. It was just kind of how they showed up, to be honest, and what they thought was going to be, what they thought was going to be handled for them, and sometimes that was, they thought everything was going to be handled. And sometimes it's, just how they react to like the challenges in the beginning, if they stay engaged, if they run the recipe, or do they say, hands up, like the people that I've done business with here are no good, even though there's tons of evidence around them that the system works. It's just not working for you in where you are right now. So that's how I got more into inviting people in, getting to know people, all that kind of stuff. I was just at an emerging brand. And it was interesting. We were at this fancy restaurant for a dinner, and it's restaurant related. And, the founder was there with his key people, and the manager came by just to make sure, everything was going well. And no doubt he gave her a sales proposition right in front of me, like, hey, like, have you guys ever used this service? And what do you do right now? And blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's a guy that gets it. Like every opportunity is a selling opportunity or just an opportunity to build a relationship, to find out if there's something there. And I had more respect for that person to do that in front of me, than holding off, because it could have been embarrassing for him in front of his key people and, me, just, they could have shut him down, what I mean? But
I think the deals don't happen before dialogue. And I've said that on my other episodes that, at the end of the day, deals don't happen before dialogue. If you want to make a deal, you got to build a relationship. And for me, I grew up kind of introverted. I'm still, even though I know thousands of professional speakers, I'm in the Hall of Fame of one of only 200 people as a keynote speaker. And a lot of us are introverted, even though we speak in front of thousands of people. I just keynoted Authority Brands. They have 14 different brands, 2,500 people in the room, and they're like, aren't you nervous? I'm like, no, I'm excited. Let's go. Because I'm okay if someone asks a tough question from the room, right? There's 14 different home services brands and trade services in there. And so I've done that all the way down to smaller groups, right? So like Frenchie's had a smaller group, and we went to Mexico, and it was a beautiful event. But what I've learned about success in relationships, going back to what you were saying, for me, I was an introvert. I understood marketing. I never had a problem when it came to marketing or sales, but that networking always kind of was hard. And so I always believe, there's an answer to everything, right? If one person can do it, a lot of people can do it. If one person is successful in a franchise brand, if you model what they do, you can be successful too. Because you and I both know from our decades in franchising that a lot of franchisees want to blame the franchisor instead of taking personal accountability for their own success. And what are they taking control of? Their attitude, their actions, or their allocation of time, right? Are they controlling what they're supposed to do? So for me, the shift that did the networking for me was when one guy asked me, because every time I'm hired to go to a conference, the night before is the meet and greet, right? You got to come and you got to meet the franchise. And I'm always like, man, I don't want to go down and network with these franchises. I don't know what to say. And this was the early days. And then someone told me, they said, Ford, I know why you don't want to network. And I said, well, tell me, I'd love to have this solved for me. And what idea can change your entire life? And he said, you grew up in foster care. You grew up abused. You grew up in dangerous neighborhoods. You grew up with stranger danger. So by nature, you kept to yourself and you were always streetwise. And so you don't want a network. He said, but you're not in the projects anymore. You're not that ninth grade, nine-year-old kid carrying a 9mm. You don't need to be scared anymore. It's okay to meet me. Now, when he told me this, I kid you not, that one idea changed how I looked at networking. I completely changed it because I thought I don't have to be scared. But a lot of times we have blocks in our brains that prevent us from doing something, or we've been conditioned to do things a certain way because we've always done it that way. And I always tell people, if you have a belief that isn't serving you, it's time to get some new beliefs. And it's not what you know, it's how well you execute. So those are two things that I not only say to audiences, but I also say to myself in the mirror, because I know a lot of things I should be doing. I need to use my CRM more efficiently. I need to stick to my meetings on time. I mean, there's a million things I could go on with. But for me, it was stranger danger when I realized I don't have to be scared. These aren't strangers, and no deal happens before dialogue. And now I seek out those dialogues. I seek out those conversations. I seek out those relationships. And so for those of you listening, if there's something in your life that you want to do, maybe you need to take an inventory of where you are right now. What are the belief systems, and are they based on reality? Because you and I both know you've had franchisees, and I've had them where they say, oh, there's too much competition. There's no market. There's no good people. Millennials don't want to work. Well, that's kind of BS, not the BS kind, but the belief system kind, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. The belief system. Yeah, for sure. And it's the whole networking thing is, I've never heard that either. Deals don't happen before dialogue, but it's one of the things that I say repeatedly to anybody that's going in. Well, anybody, I say it to my kids, and, anybody that's going into business, everything happens in a real conversation. Like you're having a challenge with somebody, God forbid if it's on text, that's the absolute worst. Email second worst. But having a real conversation really, really clarifies everything. Whether if it's a potential, conflict or something like that, or whether it's starting a real relationship of some sort, business or social or whatever. And what I told hundreds of Anytime Fitness owners over the years that have reached out, and all of our franchisees, is have as many conversations as you possibly can. And yes, it would help if you had a branded piece of clothing on to start those conversations. And, for our first 5 years, I had a big truck. It was a Yukon Denali, and I had it wrapped with Frenchie's Modern Nail Care. And and I'd get out at gas stations, and people would be like, "You're the nail guy, I guess," because the license plates were nailed it. And I'd be like, "Yeah, what do you want to know? Like, here's our locations, and here you go." So it's like you have those conversations, and you lean into it. You have as many like our franchisees, I would say, like, if you don't know the owners and the managers of every business that's around you, and they don't know who you are, because sometimes what's more important is like who knows who you are rather than the other way around sometimes, because then people want to get to know you as well. Then you're not doing your local job. You're not doing what every franchisor says to everybody that has brick and mortar is like, you're responsible for local marketing. There is no easy button that you get to go press because you paid your 6% or 8% royalties. It's like local marketing is on you and your team. And Stephanie, like, for as much, technological marketing as we could do, and, hired people and all that, like, we were still proponents of cards on cars in grocery stores,
grassroots
and flyers.
Marketing. Yep.
Yeah. And like, no shame in our game. I mean, we got plenty of notices, like one time, we did it at it was actually my sister. She went out to a local mall and did it in the mall. And we got a letter from the attorney of the mall owner, like they were going to charge us $800 to dispose of our cards that we left on their property, but we would have
those.
we would have some people that I would recommend that to, whether in Frenchies or Anytime or other ones, and be like, no, our town doesn't allow that. And I'm like, wait till you get a couple warning letters first.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I used to do this. There's a direct mail campaign that I used to do, and so let's say I was going to mail. So let's say you were going to mail 5,000 homes in Phoenix about your tiny homes, right? And so what you would do is you'd print 10,000 letters, a sales letter, and the first 5,000 you'd mail out. And the second 5,000, you'd go to the printer, and on the second run, when they run the master through the printing, you put a little note on there that says, please don't throw this away again. And so what we would do is you're getting where I'm going ahead of me. So we would mail the 5,000 out, and then we would pay the mail house to crinkle them up. Like this is just a 3x5 card, but imagine a whole piece of paper. And we'd unfold it, and then we'd fold it and stick it in the envelope. So it was all, and so they'd send out a nice clean envelope, and they'd open up this piece that had obviously been scrimpled, and it said, please don't throw this away again. And all we would do is put a Post-it note on it. Please don't throw it away. And we got so many calls, although we did get some crazy people who had called the post office and thought that we went through their trash. Like, no, it was the second mailing. Like, it had nothing to do with going through their trash. But people are gullible. They just figured, well, we must have gone through their trash. And that's awesome. That's one thing we did. But I think it's kind of like you want to follow your systems. You want to follow your rules. I mean, when you think about franchisees that might be listening to this, you want to follow your systems. It's one thing I say every time I speak at an organization. But at the same time, you're responsible for those relationships. It's your business. And so the national voice has a national voice, but you're responsible for the local voice, which is one of the reasons why, if I can get the book out, it's one of the reasons I wrote that, right? And shameless plug, The Ultimate Guide for Franchisees to Maximize Local Marketing and Boost Sales, because the franchisee was like, hey, we want them to follow our systems, but we want them to have ideas that they can then go out and use. And so what's a crazy idea that you tried that worked for you on any of your business or anything you've seen? And I've got a couple more to share, but I'm just curious, is there any marketing idea that you saw that was really kind of crazy?
Yeah, for local marketing in particular.
Sure, any marketing, yeah.
Well, we in our markets for Anytime, we would want to do door hangers all the time because that's really good. When we opened up our Steamboat location, we were so scared that it was gonna be a tough market that Stephanie and I moved with our kids there. And on lunch breaks and things like that, we would actually go around. One of our kids was still in a stroller, and we would put door hangers on doors. And that's 15 years ago. We still have some of those original members in that club because they're like, I remember when you came around with Kane. He was 2 years old and now he's 16 or 17 almost. But some of the local marketing, especially for door hangers and things like that, we would hire local high school teams, whether it was a hockey team or wrestling team or things like that. And then we would have their coach just kind of drop them off in neighborhoods and then circle back so that we made sure that we didn't find 500 flyers in one garbage can later. Right. So basic stuff like that, and it's sometimes I think, especially for the local marketing, there's a large fear of rejection. Like in our beauty business, we had mostly younger women, and we would have them go to the grocery store parking lot because those cars turn over. Like most people aren't going to the grocery store 2 or 3 days in a row. So we hit them on Wednesday, boom, then Thursday is a different group of cars. So we'll go put $5 off cards in there. But there's a lot of chance for people to get upset because you're touching their car or whatever like that. And some people they would just get so traumatized by it, they would come back like crying and things like that. And some people are like, oh no, I got to have all these conversations, and those are the people that you want to go out there. Yeah, exactly. But it's that fear of rejection, I think, that for the owner and manager and some of the frontline people, that kind of scares people away from the local marketing. And I think it would be great for people to get trained on that, in terms of just general sales training. Like, it's a large number game, like we're not looking for 50 people to come in if we drop off 100 cars in a parking lot. We're looking for 2. like 1 to 2
the numbers. It's always funny because whenever I do sales training, people will say, so there's marketing, there's sales, right? Marketing creates the opportunity, sales closes the deal. And so in marketing, people will say, or in sales, they'll say, well, I made a lot of sales calls. Everybody said no. And I'm like, okay, how many calls did you make? 4. Okay. That's not sales calls, right? You need to do a block of 25, 4 days a week. That's 100 a week, 4 times a month, 400 a month. And maybe you'll get a few conversions, but it's a numbers game, and it's also quality. I'm not just saying spam people and give useless thing. I always tell people, don't think about it as selling. Sell's a 4-letter word, right? So is help. Yep. You're just helping people. If you really care, like if, let's say I owned an Anytime Fitness franchise, if I care about people being healthier, happier, reducing stress, and having more functional movement and flexibility, then that's all I care about. I'm not caring about membership fees and cancellations and do they care or are they a member of another club. If I really care with the purpose of helping. So I think the first sale everybody has to make in any business, and anybody listening here, is the first sale is to yourself, and the second is your mindset, right? And so my accelerated growth system has 3 parts. It has mindset, strategies, and tactics. And the mindset piece always comes down to, are they coachable? Are they open-minded? Are they a critical thinker? Are they willing to be accountable? And are they willing to be humble and, forget the mistake and learn the lesson, right? And so if you're not resilient in that, you're probably going to have a really hard time in any business. And that's what I have found. And because I've turned businesses around, I've had people say, oh, no one buys anything. And then I go out and sell $200,000 of their product in a weekend, depending on their model, of course. But it's always matching the right message to the right market, using the right method. And not all methods work, but people will tell me pay-per-click doesn't work, or social media doesn't work, or influencer marketing doesn't work, or whatever the method, gifting doesn't work, or add specialty products, logo products don't work. Everything works if you match the right message to the market.
Right. And the other thing is, like, there's no such thing as one silver bullet. Like, marketing is not, well, the digital's not working. It's, like our cost per click is too much. The cost of acquisition is too much. It's like all the things put together worked consistently. That's what works. And then once you find a trend or something like that, you want to allocate more resources to that particular channel that's working for you. That's different, but in the beginning, usually the franchisor, they have a pretty good idea what works. It's obviously they've had their own units. It's working in other markets. That's one of the things, that I'm sure you've heard a bunch, is the fallacy of my market is so unique, that everything that's working so well for everybody else doesn't work here.
That's a red flag whenever I hear that.
Yeah, it's usually not true at all. And I think that's one of the biggest things that people get into a challenge with. Number one is, like, when they get into franchising, whatever the system, it's a small business and there's going to be challenges, and everything's going to be new to you in the first 6 to 12 months, even if it's not new to the franchisor, and so, the trust factor of the franchise or from the franchisee goes from super high in the beginning to they know everything. They've done this. Like, we believe in them so much. We just spent X amount of dollars on their territories, to after the first 3 months or 6 months and they're still not at break even or something like that. And they've run into some unique challenges that, like, oh my gosh, I got duped by this system. Like, they're making money off the territory fees. I promise you, anybody out there, any system, like, the franchisor does not make that much money on the territory fees. What they are banking on is your success long term. And so there, the number of times that I've heard people say, like, yeah, they just wanted to sell me a territory. I'm like, no. To be honest, I don't mean to, this is not personal to anybody. Like, you're more work than you're worth for the first year. Not as a person, but like, the real thing is, like, I know that sounded really bad and I don't mean it that way, but that's when they start making money, right? Yeah. That's when they start making money, is like when that person has the system down, they're running it, they're helping others out to bring people into the system and helping others operate there better. All of a sudden, it's like this upward cycle of synergy is going really, really well. In the beginning, it's all challenges and problems and everything's brand new. So of course it's a challenge, so that's, and the one thing I would say is, if anybody's listening and they're in a system or, it's not going as smoothly as they thought or anything like that, is like, make sure you're not staying in your own echo chamber, whether that's you and your spouse complaining about things or you and 3 other people that are also dissatisfied. It's like, go talk to people that are going to get you, whether you like it or not, go talk to people that are having a different experience and a different result than you, and just listen to them and maybe implement things. Especially in franchising, we have that as an advantage. I mean, it's one of the biggest things of franchising that's a huge advantage, is besides the processes and the systems and they're proven and all that kind of stuff, is like there's this whole community that, whether they're in South Carolina and you're in Arizona, they want you to win.
Right.
Everybody's on the same side of the table. The better the brand reputation, the better their personal investment is, and the easier it is to run their business and scale it. So go talk to people that are having different results than you that you want, and just be willing to, push the ego down a little bit and just be like what you were talking about, open-minded, humble.
The more I know, the more I know I don't know, right? Even though I've learned a lot over the years, the more I know I don't know. And again, so just to echo what you said, not only should you check out other people and get out of your own box so you get other perspectives, but you can either learn from your own experience or from other people's experience. And now with social media the way it is and access to people, you have access to not only real people, but you have access to, all kinds of learning management systems and master classes and courses. And of course, YouTube. For me, I was an Olympic caliber athlete in 84, and I went to the Olympic Training Center in 87, and I was a pro cyclist. And then I started my business and I went from 165 to 265, right? It was like, holy crap. Now I know what to do. So,
the power to weight ratio was off a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. And so when I went, my wife's in health and fitness. I have no excuses. She runs a studio. She has a 5,000 square foot studio. We have Jacob's Ladder. We have all the equipment. Like, I have no excuses. And plus I've got an Anytime Fitness membership. So I have no excuses. I can easily go and work out. And it was interesting because someone said, I said, I don't have time. And they said, no, it's not that you don't have time for it. It's not a priority. And boy, was that a hard pill to swallow, because they're like, what are you doing at 5:30 in the morning? Like, could you get up at 5:30 and work out from 5:30 to 6:30? So there's no such thing as, I don't have time. It's just, you don't have a priority. And so for me, when I started thinking about getting out of my box and listening to someone else, so of course, I searched people out on YouTube, and again, your business is only going to grow as fast as you do. That's why I do these episodes. I learn from the guests learn from me, the listeners learn, and it works for everybody. But I had to look at, okay, who's going to help me motivated? And so lately I've been on this algorithm of David Goggins. And so whenever I turn, for those of you listening, full disclosure, you'll either love him or hate him. So just, it's not about Goggins, but his just no BS approach, no nonsense, get off the couch, you're responsible. So every time I'm doing something, I'm going to Peru to go to Machu Picchu. So I've been training on the stair stepper, and there's a climb in Colorado called the Manitou Climb. Is that what it's called?
Oh, it's the Manitou Springs. Come out here, I'll do it with you.
The Manitou Climb is 2,700 steps, right? So I've been going to the stair stepper, and in an hour I went 76%. So I counted the number of steps and I've calculated. So I've got 76%. But my butt was kicked by the time I got off that stair stepper, because I don't hold on to the rails. I'm talking about just walking without. Yeah. I don't hold on to the rails. I see people though just hanging on like that.
Yeah.
But it was interesting.
If anybody's doing that, please stop hanging onto the rails when you're on the stair stepper.
It doesn't help. What's the point, right? And so about 40 minutes in, my brain started playing tricks. Oh, well, last time you went 30 minutes, you went 40, and I started playing that. And then all of a sudden Goggins came in my ear, like, you pussy, pardon my language, but sorry, I don't, anybody's listening this long, it's okay. But it was like, what are you doing? You can do this, And so, man, I finished it out strong. So my point is, whatever it is in your life, whether it's business, personal health, finances, relationships, parenting, spirituality, there are people that will help you. There are podcasts dedicated to whatever the topic is, I'm sure. So, take personal accountability and go out and make it happen. I know one of the things you do, you're really disciplined. Are you still doing, is it called the Hard 75?
75 hard.
75 hard.
I'm not doing it right now. I'm doing I've done it a few times, and I'm doing a different version, which is also hard and inconvenient sometimes, but it's more of a mental toughness thing for kind of forces me to do things that I don't really feel like doing sometimes.
Yeah, that was me last night at the Y. I was like, because, I worked all day. I was on Zoom calls. Like, I'll be on Zoom right now. In an hour, I've got another episode that I'm producing. And it's like, oh my goodness, I can only do so much. But then I'm thinking, okay, I think we can all do 20 times more than what we think we can. But we have these limiting beliefs that help hold us back. So a lot of times when I say things to other people, my audience is like, if you think it, you can do it. And it's not what you know, it's all you execute. I'm speaking to me, right? Yes, I'm giving it to the audience, but I'm also the plumber with leaky pipes. Sometimes I just have to take my own advice.
Oh yeah. We're all works in progress. Like one of the things that I've in fitness, you have a lot of opportunities to call people out, basically, like for the excuses. We all know what the 5 objections are going to be for someone signing up a membership or investing in themselves in personal training. And I've taken a line from someone that I listen to a lot and had more tough conversations or kind of called people on their BS sometimes. And I always preface it with like you said, like, oh, I don't have time for that. I'm super busy. And I said, and I'll call them out like, yes, you do. It's prioritization. I'm like, I'm not calling you out. I'm just holding you to a higher standard than you're holding yourself to right now. And that line really, it resonates with people. They're like, okay, I'm not insulted anymore.
Right. Yeah. And I obviously end up doing sometimes I do the insulting. I don't realize it until I realize the response. I'm oh, sorry, I didn't mean it that way.
Yeah. Right. Because everybody's, got their own challenges and, everybody thinks theirs is the worst sometimes, so, but I think that's a really good way of putting it to somebody, if you're trying to help somebody out, or when you're having your self-talk is like, I'm holding myself to a higher standard now. Like, this is what I'm doing. Right. Well, I said I was going to do it. And I'm going to do it. I have a really quick, funny Goggins story if you want to hear it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. Go for it.
So I was at this conference. It was an Anytime Fitness conference a while ago. And I was checking into the Omni or something. Yeah, the Omni down in Nashville, right next to Bridgestone Arena. It's a really nice hotel. And I'm checking in, it's early morning, and this guy comes in. It was Goggins, but I didn't know Goggins at that point in time. And he had just gotten done with a run. So all he's got on is gym shorts and running shoes. And he's like sweating behind me. And I just kind of looked at him and, he's obviously in shape. And I was like, dude, I was just thinking to myself, like, dude, whatever, there's going to be like 2,000 guys and gals that are just as fit as you, at this conference, because Anytime Fitness conferences.
Anytime Fitness. Yeah. Right. Just like when I spoke at Anytime Fitness.
Yeah. There's a lot of very, very beautiful people, and very fit people. And so I was like, whatever, dude. He kind of looked at me and I looked at him. And then later on that day, I saw him give his speech, and tell me about his Navy SEALs and running 200 miles and everything that he's been through.
250 and all that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And the mentality of, he thinks most people stop at 40% of what they could actually do, but our governor is so low right now that we don't push ourselves. And I know people have done events with him and they're like, it's not a show, man. He's the real deal, kind of kooky crazy. But I always thought that was funny because I was like, just kind of wrote him off as just another fit guy that thought he was kind of cool because he was in the lobby of the hotel shirtless. And then I found out he could have just wiped me off the face of the earth right there.
And if you look at if you know his backstory, he was almost 300 pounds. I mean, he's got a book called Can't Hurt Me and stuff. And it's a really, again, someone like my wife who's into yoga and Zen and energy, Goggins doesn't do it for her at all. But someone like me who needs that stronger voice, like you said, to hold me to a higher standard, even though he doesn't know who I am. Right. I mean, but you can learn from that. So real takeaway is find somebody that motivates you. And just, you can either find an excuse or find a way. And so I say that to myself too. Whenever I see myself saying an excuse, I'm like, okay, wait, I have to find a way. And then I look at, has anybody else done it? And then I model that behavior. And if they haven't done it, then I say, well, I'm going to not follow. I'm going to, carve my own trail and become the leader. And so it just depends on, what you're looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Like so much of what you're saying is for the benefit of people listening, but it's also for our own ears, because we believe our own voice more than anybody else's. So that self-talk it's a constant battle. Like, I don't think anybody's, 100% their cheerleader all the time, unless they're a total narcissist or megalomaniac.
He would qualify, but other than that, yeah.
Right. We're all like on that struggle and things. And, I was listening to one of your interviews over the past few days, and I think you asked one of the guests, like, what was a recommendation they would have, like, to change something or something like that. And I was thinking about that, like, those kind of conversations help you, like, just kind of ponder some things, and one of the things that I would say is, like, since my operating role has stopped, I'm like in this big learning, helping others, phase, which I hope to continue, no matter what I'm doing with Dwell Well and other opportunities, because it is so rewarding. And I kind of realize, like, some of the things that I say, I'm not a guru or anything like that, but to a lot of younger people, it's the first time they've heard it and they listen to me. So I'm like, oh, okay, like, great. I'm having an influence. But one of the things is I've invested a lot in coaching, speaker coach, a writing coach, a business coach, like I've got all these coaches now, which is fantastic. But, it's also some of these ridiculously inexpensive courses that I see on Instagram that, I got one from this gal, and it's so funny because she teaches people how to do videos better. And her sole audience is women. I think I'm the only guy that's ever purchased her stuff, right? But it's so good, and it was like $79. So instead of having social media on my phone, like when I need a break from something, I just go into one of these courses and I learn one thing and then I try it out. I've got it for LinkedIn. I've got it for Instagram. I've got it for videos. I've got it for writing. And so that's my little break during the day, is not scrolling Instagram or YouTube or anything like that. It's all these little courses. And then it's just fun. Like, I listened for 5 minutes and I'm like, I should just try that out and see how it works.
Yeah.
So it's also the learning. What is it called? Learning, not just in case, but just in time.
Right.
So what I learn, I'm implementing right away and seeing how difficult it is for me, number one, and what the result is, number two.
I think it's a good philosophy to end the episode on too. I know, like I've said, your business will only grow as fast as you do. There's all types of resources out there. You just have to seek them. Guy, thank you for joining me. Make sure you say hi to Stephanie. Stick around at the end here. And thanks everybody for tuning in to Fortify Live, where we're all about accelerating your business growth. Until next time, keep innovating, keep growing, and keep fortifying your success.
Thank you for tuning in to Fortify Live. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the Business Growth Show podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. We air weekly at 11 a.m. Central Time. So until next week, keep pushing the boundaries and never